Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world. Even more particularly to all Shepherd's Rod believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, to our brethren in Georgia, our brethren in Kansas, in Missouri, and Texas, in Chicago, Illinois, in California, in New York, Fiji Island, Mexico, Spain, in Africa, Zambia, Kenya, Pakistan, to the United Kingdom, to our brethren in Australia, as well as to our brethren in Malaysia, and to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. Greetings. May the good Lord bless you, my dear brothers and sisters. This is our special episode number 2 to re-emphasize the 66 books in the heavenly sanctuary, and for the benefits of our beloved sister Corinne. Now, to continue to our study, I would like to read track number 3 on page 6. Track number 3 on page 6. It says, "And since the books are obviously the focal point in the scene, the question naturally arises, what is the reason for books?" Track number 3 on page 6. So the focal point of such judicial proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary are the books. Remember that according to the great controversy, 488 and 489, it says, the sanctuary in heaven is the very center of Christ's work in behalf of men. It concerns every soul living upon the earth. It opens to view the plan of redemption bringing us down to the very close of time and revealing the triumphant issue of the contest between righteousness and sin. The great controversy. 488 and 489. So, Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary is the very center of Christ's work in the plan of redemption. And of course, Satan's determined effort is to darken the understanding of God's people, how such plan of redemption had been carried out in the heavenly sanctuary. That Satan will try to the utmost of his ability to divert our attention rather than to focus our attention to Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. I would like to read Testimonies for the Church in volume 1, 123. It says, truth, present truth, we must dwell upon it. We are doing a great work and cannot come down. Satan is in all this to divert our minds from the present truth and the coming of Christ. I remember the statement in Answer number 1, page 69. It says, rouse then, O present truth believer, rise speedily to the task set, and whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with thy might. Ezekiel 9, Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 10. No longer let a moment be wasted, for every precious one is vital to the salvation of your own soul and to the souls of others. In page 68, it says, Answerer number 1, with the end of the long journey in view, the work was never so great. The time in which to do it never so short. And the laborers never so few as now. Self-evident, therefore, is the fact that Satan's supreme effort at this hour must be to cause the time to be wasted and the work to go undone. I remember in 1 TG number 18 page 21. 1 TG number 18 page 21. It says, the devil would have us busy ourselves with unimportant matters and with things that we do not understand. I would like to read again the statement in 1 TG number 18, page 21. The devil would have us busy ourselves with unimportant matters and with things that we do not understand. So, the devil wants us to divert our attention to any other things rather than that our attention will be focused to Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. I remember the statement in the Great Controversy on 518. The Great Controversy 518. It says, the great controversy between Christ and Satan that has been carried forward for nearly 6,000 years is soon to close. And the wicked one redoubles his efforts to defeat the work of Christ in man's behalf and to fasten souls in his snares, to hold the people in darkness, and impenitence till the Savior's mediation is ended. And there is no longer a sacrifice for sin is the object which he seeks to accomplish. The Great Controversy 518. That it seems that even among the media today, the devil successfully divert their attention to any other things rather than to focus their whole attention to Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary, which is about to be ended. I remember the statement given by the Voice of Inspiration. Let me see. It says here, Let's read. It is number 4 and 5. Written by A.G. Wagoner. It says, the only way to understand difficult passages of the Bible is to hold fast to certain firmly established principles. The plain facts of the gospel are always the same and must never be lost sight of. It must also be remembered that the whole Bible, you see, the whole Bible or the entire Bible is given for the purpose of revealing God to men. And that this is done only through the cross. So that wherever we read, we may be sure that there is something that concerns the great work of salvation. The statement in the Bible, in Ezekiel, let's read. Ezekiel chapter 13. I would like to read. Ezekiel chapter 13. Verse 1, verse 2, and verse 3. Ezekiel chapter 13. Verse 1, verse 2, and verse 3. It says, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, prophesy against the prophets of Israel, that prophesy, and say thou unto them that prophesy out of their own hearts, hear ye the word of the Lord. Thus sent the Lord God, who unto the foolish prophets, that follow their own spirit, and have seen nothing. This statement, and have seen nothing, is pointing to the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary. Remember, the prophets mentioned here is the prophets in Israel. And the Bible says they were foolish prophets because in reality they were in total ignorance of the proceedings that occurred in the heavenly sanctuary. But, brothers and sisters, first of all, we need to understand that prophecy must be fulfilled. Prophecy must be fulfilled. According to the shepherd's rod, it is the brass kingdom that shall be ruled over all the earth. Here into us are $139. It says, the horn bears rule over all the earth. Remember, the horn mentioned here is the exceeding great horn. I would like to read to you first. To SR 129. It says, to SR 129, the horn reveals that which the beast fails to do. So I would like to read again the statement. The horn reveals that which the beast fails to do. Remember, the horn, or the exceeding great horn, is found on Daniel chapter 8. But the beast is found on Daniel chapter 7. And the shepherd's rod declared clearly that there is something by which such prophecy cannot be found on Daniel chapter 7, but rather only on Daniel chapter 8. What prophecy? The prophecy on Daniel chapter 2, verse 39. Now, let us read again the statement in 2SR 139. It says, these are facts which cannot be denied. Or, in other words, to deny these facts is really foolish enough. It says, these are facts which cannot be denied. However, there is another proof that bears evidence of the same. What facts which cannot be denied? The fact that it was predicted beforehand that the exceeding great horn bears rule over all the earth. It is very important, brothers and sisters, to study this portion before we will focus our attention to the books, the 66 books in the heavenly sanctuary. Remember, the shepherd's rod declared clearly in White House Recruiter on page 20, saying that heaven's books deal with all aspects of life. The books in the heavenly sanctuary deals with all aspects of life. Not only some, but rather all aspects of life. Only to the life created by God. Because the existence of God, the nature of God is unfathomable. Of all the subject ever recorded in the Bible, one of the things by which we are prohibited, brothers and sisters, is to know about the nature of God. We cannot fathom. And many people now is engaging to that portion which is in reality forbidden by God. I remember the statement in Testimonies for the Church on volume 8, page 285. So let us read this reading. And hoping that we will focus our attention to the things that God commanded us to focus all our attention. And we need to avoid those things by which God prohibited us. Now here in volume 8, page 285, it says, man cannot by searching find out God. Now this statement is not pointing to a human being that he is seeking for God, but rather pointing to the nature of God. It says, man cannot by searching find out God. Let none seek with presumptuous hand to lift the veil that conceals his glory. Unsearchable are his judgments, and his ways past finding out. Romans 11, verse 33. It is a proof of his mercy that there is the hiding of his power. For to lift the veil that conceals the divine presence is death. It will only lead to destruction, death. No mortal mind can penetrate the secrecy in which the Mighty One dwells and works. Only that which he sees fit to reveal can we comprehend of Him. Reason must acknowledge an authority superior to itself. Heart and intellect must bow to the great I Am. Because as I've learned, there are already brothers and sisters, shepherds and believers, who are trying to interpret the nature of God. Brothers and sisters, the voice of inspiration made it so plain that the authority of the great I Am is superior. And we are not allowed to penetrate whatever revealed in the writings of Sister White and B.T. Hotep. That is all. I would like to read here in volume 8, page 279. It says, speculative theories. Those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever. But the secret things belong unto the Lord our God. Deuteronomy 29:29. The revelation of Himself that God has given in His Word is for our study. This we may seek to understand. But beyond this, we are not to penetrate. Look at the Bedouin today. They're trying to penetrate concerning the personality of God. God is powerful. He can produce whatever He wants. And it says here, brothers and sisters, the highest intellect may tax itself until it is wearied out in conjectures regarding the nature of God, but the effort will be fruitless. The highest intellect, can you imagine? That is in superlative degree, highest intellect. The highest intellect may tax itself until it is wearied out in conjectures regarding the nature of God, but the effort will be fruitless. This problem has not been given us to solve. No human mind can comprehend God. Let not finite man attempt to interpret Him. Look at Sam Davidian trying to interpret that the Holy Spirit is a female. What an astounding blasphemy. Ponder deeply, brothers and sisters. The voice of inspiration says, no human mind can comprehend God. That is pointing to the nature of God. We are only created beings. Even angels. I would like to read on the next paragraph. It says, no human mind can comprehend God. Let not finite man attempt to interpret Him. Because if you will be studying, what is really the word Trinity? And then you will be confused. gathering all information, but the effort is fruitless. And not only fruitless, it will lead to destruction. Then it says, let none indulge in speculation regarding his nature. Her silence is eloquence. The omniscient one is above discussion. Can you imagine? We only mortal beings. We are discussing, studying the nature of God. Brothers and sisters, if we could be able to comprehend the true nature of God, then God, He ceased to be as God. The reason that He is God, His existence, His nature is beyond our comprehension. We need to bow down the superiority of the great I am. And then it says, even the angels, you see, even the angels, why is it that Satan, the mystery of iniquity, entered into his heart? Because he always meditating, trying to penetrate the nature of God until he arrived to the conclusion that God and he are equal, until Lucifer arrived to the conclusion that he is also pre-existent. Because his understanding is limited. How much more we are mortal beings. Now, I would like to read again. It says, even the angels were not permitted to share the counsels between the Father and the Son when the plan of salvation was laid. Those human beings who seek to intrude into the secrets of the Most High show their ignorance of spiritual and eternal things. Far better might they, while mercy's voice is still heard, humble themselves in the dust and plead with God to teach them His ways. We are as ignorant of God as little children, but as little children, we may love and obey Him. Instead of speculating in regard to His nature or His prerogatives, let us give heed to the word He has spoken. Be still and know that I am God. Psalms 46, verse 10. Can thou by searching find out God? Can thou find out the Almighty unto perfection? It is as high as heaven. What canst thou do? Deeper than hell. What canst thou know? The measure thereof is longer than the earth, and broader than the sea. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 8, page 279. And that is why in Testimonies for the Church, Volume 8, it says that there are thousands of topics that invite attention, but ends in nothing. And it is the devil who are diverting our attention to the plan of redemption that have been carried out in the heavenly sanctuary, by which in reality, about to be finished. Now it says here in volume 8, page 316, the highest interest demand attention. The highest interest demand attention. We must turn away from 1,000 topics that invite attention. There are matters that consume time and arouse inquiry, but end in nothing. The highest interest demand the close attention and energy that are too often given to comparatively insignificant things. You see, the highest interest demand our attention. I remember the statement in Prophets and Kings 547. It says, as we near the close of this world's history, the prophecies recorded by Daniel demand our special attention as they relate to the very time in which we are living. And of course, the shepherds have declared clearly that the book of Daniel is made clear through the book of Revelation. It says in 2SR page 9 and page 10, this prophetic call is based on the prophecies of Daniel and its explanation made clear by the book of Revelation. Now, let us go back again to our reading in 2SR 139. Saying, the horn bears rule over all the earth. 2SR 139. The horn bears rule over all the earth. Then the shepherd says, these are facts which cannot be denied. One of the absolute fact by which ever recorded in the Bible, by which it cannot be denied, it was predicted beforehand that the horn bears rule over all the earth. Where we could found that prediction that the horn bears rule over all the earth? In Daniel 2, verse 39. Now let us read the statement again in 2SR 139. These are facts which cannot be denied. Now, brothers and sisters, there are two facts. Daniel 2:39 and Daniel 8 verse 5. Now let us read first. Daniel chapter 8 on verse 5. It says, "And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west. On the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes." Where does the horn came from? It came from the west. And then it says, "And then went on the face of the whole earth." And it did not touch the ground. Touch not the ground. Now let us read again what the shepherd's rod teaches. It says, "The horn bears rule over all the earth." Going back again to 2SR 129, the horn reveals that which the beast fails to do. So the horn reveals that which the beast fails to do. Or in other words, the explanation of Daniel 2 verse 39 cannot be found on Daniel chapter 7. But only on Daniel chapter 8, because the horn, the revelation of the horn is found on chapter 8, not on chapter 7. And what is the revelation? That the horn bears rule over all the earth. You can read from verse 1, I think. Is it up to verse 28, Daniel chapter 8? 27. From Daniel chapter 8, verse 1 to 27. Or in the entire book of Daniel, you cannot read the statement, bears rule over all the earth, brothers and sisters, except on Daniel 2, verse 39. But you cannot read in Daniel 2 the word horn. That is only on Daniel chapter 8. So here the shepherd's rod connect Daniel 2:39 and Daniel 8 verse 5. As well as verse 24 and verse 25, or Daniel 8 verse 25. Now I would like to read 2SR page 141. 2SR page 141. The horn extends beyond 1798 and to the second coming of Christ. Now, what second coming of Christ mentioned here? The visible coming of Jesus Christ? If that is the case, then the daily and the sanctuary will be trodden underfoot until the second visible coming of Jesus Christ, which is contradictory to the Bible, Spirit of Prophecy, and the Shepherd's Rod publications. The second coming of Christ mentioned here is not the visible, but the invisible second coming of Christ, represented by the stone in Daniel chapter 2. Apology. Maybe you are excited to know the 66 books in the heavenly sanctuary. But we will first elaborate, brothers and sisters, the occurrences, how the devil darkened the understanding of God's people concerning the proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary, by which they have no knowledge at all. They were in total ignorance that the 66 books of the Bible is a replica of the 66 books in the heavenly sanctuary. So before we will focus our attention to that portion, I would like to emphasize, because I really feel that it is very important to understand completely the book of Daniel. To understand completely the book of Daniel. The focal point of the subject on Revelation chapter 10. The book mentioned in Revelation 10 verse 2. That is the book of Daniel, according to 2TG number 15, page 3 and page 4. Now, I would like to read again, brothers and sisters, the statement here in 2SR page 141. It says, the horn extends beyond 1798 and to the second coming of Christ, corresponding with the iron legs, feet, and toes of the great image in Daniel chapter 2. So the second coming of Christ mentioned in this reading is connected to the great image in Daniel chapter 2. If we will be saying, brothers and sisters, that the second coming mentioned there is the second invisible coming, or second visible coming of Jesus Christ, then we will be saying that the great image is standing throughout or up to the second visible coming of Jesus Christ. Brothers and sisters, because that is very contradictory to the Shepherd's Rod publications, because before the stone will become a great mountain, the great mountain represents the premillennial kingdom. Before the premillennial kingdom will be established, indicating by the stone become a great mountain, the stone will smite first the image, and the image will be broken into pieces. So the second coming mentioned here is the second invisible coming of Jesus Christ. Now, let's read again the statement here in 2SR, page 141. The horn extends beyond 1798 and to the second coming of Christ, corresponding with the iron legs, feet, and toes of the great image in Daniel chapter 2. Of the horn we read, it shall be broken without hand. Daniel 8 verse 25. So here, brothers and sisters, the shepherd's rod is trying to tell us that Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 8 is closely related. In Daniel chapter 2, the description, it says, verse 34, Daniel chapter 2, verse 34, Thou sawest till that a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and break them to pieces. So what is the description? Cut out without hands. And the shepherd's rod declared clearly the same description given in Daniel 8 verse 25, saying, And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Daniel 8 verse 25 and Daniel 2 verse 34. So both of them, according to the shepherd's rod, have the same description. Without hands. And we know that the significance of that statement, without hands, meaning by God himself. Only God can do it. He will be the one to fulfill it. The description given in track number 8, without hands, meaning without human aid. It says here, I would like to read the statement. And track number 8, page 63. The stone, Daniel 2 verse 45, Zechariah chapter 3 verse 9, the 144,000, Revelation 14 verse 1, cut out of the mountain, the Laodicean church, without hands, meaning without human help. In track number 3, page 49, it says, track number 3, page 49. At the former coming of the Son of Man, the stone which smote the great image was cut out without hands, meaning without man's aid, and by the Lord himself. So that is very plain. What is the significance? Without hands, without human help, without human aid, and it will be carried out by the Lord himself, by his omnipotent power. Now let's read again the statement in 2SR 141. It says, the horn extends beyond 1798 and to the second coming of Christ, So the horn is only up to the second invisible coming of Jesus Christ. So what does it mean that the horn is only up to the second invisible coming of Jesus Christ? So we will connect that statement into SR 139. Then it says, corresponding with the iron, legs, feet, and toes of the great image in Daniel chapter 2. Of the horn we read, it shall be broken without hand. Daniel 8 verse 25. The same terms of speech are used of the feet and toes of the great image in Daniel 2 verse 45. In the days of these kings, Daniel says, shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. Daniel 2 verse 44. Therefore, the present civilization is the product of the goat or the kingdom of brass. Now, I would like to go back to 2SR 139. 2SR page 139. It says, these are facts which cannot be denied. So I would like to elaborate again. Two absolute facts that cannot be denied because it is recorded in the Bible. What are those absolute facts that cannot be denied? Daniel 2 verse 39. Daniel 8 verse 5. Daniel 2 verse 34. Daniel 8 verse 25. And Daniel 2 verse 44. Now let's read again the statement here in 2SR page 139. These are facts which cannot be denied. However, there is another fruit that bears evidence of the same. And then it says, say the prophet, and after thee, king of Babylon, shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee, and another third kingdom of brass, which shall be ruled over all the earth. Daniel 2 verse 39. But why is it that in the summary, it is entitled, the horn bears rule over all the earth. Instead, the brass bears rule over all the earth. Why? The answer is found on the next paragraph. It says, the brass kingdom is accepted to represent Grecia. But the fact is that Grecia never did bear rule over all the earth. So it is an accepted fact to all Bible students that in the great image on Daniel chapter 2, the brass kingdom represent Grecia. But the absolute fact is that Grecia never did bear rule over all the earth. And then it says, the most distant point of the compass reached by Alexander the Great was a portion of India. Neither did imperial Rome bear rule over all the earth. What then? Is Daniel wrong in the interpretation of the dream? If there is any error, Daniel cannot be at fault. The responsibility would naturally fall on God, who was the overseer of all the writings and the interpretation of the scriptures. If Daniel had made a mistake, It was God's duty to have him correct it. But as God is perfect in all his work, he cannot allow error in his holy word. Daniel is correct in his interpretation, and the brass kingdom must be ruled over all the earth. For all else may fail, but God's word shall stand forever. So what does it mean when God said, the brass kingdom shall be ruled over all the earth? By which the shepherd's rod says, the horn bears rule over all the earth. It's easy to understand that the exceeding great horn, there are 3 periods. And brass has a numerical value of number 3. Now let us read track number 2. Track number 2, page 13. While brass, being turned to gold, precisely fits the third empire, Grecia, and consequently has the numerical value of 3. So here God is emphasizing through the guidance of the shepherd's rod that the fulfillment of Daniel 2 verse 39 must be in the third period of the exceeding great horn, brothers and sisters, which is represented by the brass, having a numerical value of number 3. Now let's read track number 3 on page 39. It says, track number 3, page 39. And as the great horn of the he-goat is symbolical of the Roman world, represented by iron in Daniel 2 verse 40, in its 3 periods, pagan, ecclesiastical, and Protestant. Also as in its second period, it trod the truth and the host underfoot and polluted the sanctuary by bringing in the abominations while it practiced and prospered. Brethren, the word also is applied in the third period. Remember Daniel chapter 8, the only chapter that predicts the exceeding great horn. Daniel chapter 8. And the shepherds have declared clearly that Daniel chapter 8 find its fulfillment in the Christian era. Brothers and sisters, not in the Old Testament period. So I would like to read in track number 3. Track number 3. On page 36. Track number 3 on page 36. It says, it is concerning Daniel chapter 8. It is evident that in this chapter, the angel is explaining in detail the vision which was shown to Daniel in the 8th chapter, and that Daniel chapter 8 verse 11 and 12 is parallel in time with Daniel 11 verse 31. A comparison of both scriptures as found on page 25 makes clear that the 11th chapter is an explanation in particular of the power that is projected by the exceeding great horn of the 8th chapter. Also, it makes clear that the sanctuary spoken of in Daniel 8 verse 11 cannot be any other than God's sanctuary. For on the one hand, a hidden structure can never be of strength, or on the other hand, be polluted when it has never been clean. And moreover, never does the Bible call it a sanctuary. And finally, the very fact that the sanctuary in Jerusalem was neither polluted nor cleansed in the manner described by the angel, but was left desolate and was ultimately destroyed, Daniel 9 verse 26, puts the riveting evidence to the proof that neither the polluting nor the cleansing took place in the Old Testament era. So, the polluting predicted in Daniel chapter 8 is in the Christian era, not in the Old Testament. As a matter of fact, the Shepherd's Rod says in tract number 12, let's read again the statement. Tract number 12, page 81, it says that these three links of truth, the polluting of the sanctuary, the taking away of the daily, and the placing of the abomination in the prophetic chain of events bring us several centuries into the Christian era, is conclusively confirmed by Christ referring to them as in the future from the time He uttered the command. Brothers and sisters, remember, there are three things mentioned here: polluting the sanctuary, taking away the daily, and placing the abomination. These three events, prophetic events, is projected into the future, and the Shepherd's Rod says, several centuries from the Christian era. Century, 1 century consists of 100 years. The word several is applied only to at least 3 or more than 3. So, that statement is strong enough to prove that the word also is pointing to the third period in tract number 3, page 39. That if the daily and the sanctuary had been trodden underfoot during the second period of the exceeding great horn, which is the ecclesiastical period or the papal supremacy, it was predicted beforehand that it will also be trodden underfoot in the third period, the Protestant period. And that facts cannot be denied, by which in reality, the focal point is not in the first period of the exceeding great horn, not on the second period of the exceeding great horn, but on the third and the last period, represented by the brass kingdom, because the brass mentioned in Daniel 2 verse 39 is used by God to let us know that it is on the third period of the exceeding great horn, because brass has a numerical value of number 3. Because historically, the brass kingdom, which represented by Grecia, according to the Shepherd's Rod, never bears rule over all the earth. Now, here's another statement that I would like to read in 2SR, page 140. It says, 2SR 140, it says, had Daniel said of the nondescript beast, symbol of imperial and papal Rome, that it would be ruled over all the earth, the claim would prove incorrect. So, those who will teach that it is either imperial Rome or either papal Rome, the fulfillment that would be rule over all the earth, that claim would prove incorrect. Why? Because God is very specific. He did not say the iron shall bear rule over all the earth, but rather the brass shall bear rule over all the earth. So the voice of inspiration is very plain. Brothers and sisters, that very specific, it must be on the third period of the exceeding great horn, by which the horn shall bear rule over all the earth. What does it mean that the horn bear rule over all the earth? What is the focal point of the horn? According to track number 12, page 81. To trodden underfoot the daily and the sanctuary. And the Bible is very plain. It practiced and prospered. Now, I would like to read the Bible. What does it mean by trodden underfoot? Let us read Matthew chapter 5. Matthew chapter 5. Let us read. Here in Matthew chapter 5 and verse 13, ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt have lost his savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden underfoot of men. So what is the significance of trodden underfoot? Good for nothing. What does it mean? Taken for granted. The devil successfully trodden underfoot the daily and the sanctuary. In the third period, what is the third period? Protestant period. Track number 3, page 39. Brothers and sisters, good for nothing. I would like to emphasize this thing. There are some Sabbath keepers. They are discussing the subject, the sanctuary doctrine. But they don't believe the shepherd's rod. Brothers and sisters, that is good for nothing. You could not be able to comprehend the sanctuary doctrine without the shepherd's rod. That is foolishness. That is a waste of time. Because there is in Facebook, always invited me concerning their discussion concerning sanctuary doctrine. But if you will insert to tell them concerning the shepherd's rod, they will not accept it. Brethren, Here in 1TG number 42, page 4, it says, the conclusion then is that without this additional message, that is pointing to the Shepherd's Rod publications. The conclusion then is that without this additional message, the church will never reach her goal. So, I remember the statement in Old Symbolic Code that it was illustrated. I would like to read here in the Old Symbolic Code. And to Symbolic Code, number 1, page 9 and 10. To Symbolic Code, number 1, page 9 and 10. It says, the only thing that would compel him to pass Blue Sunday laws and go to make war with the remnant of her seed, with those that are left, Revelation 12:17, is the purity of the church when God, by the slaughter weapons of Ezekiel 9, takes away the tares which received not the mark. And even then, Satan will not enact Blue Sunday laws until after he has exhausted every other weapon against the church. Therefore, as long as the church remains in her present Laodicean condition, there will be no blue laws or war against her, but a bluff, only to make her members believe that they are free from his snares, and that he is still trying to cause them to fall. But the worst of it all is that they are sound asleep, which is shown by the fact that they still think Satan is working terribly hard to fulfill God's word by trying to pass blue laws, and are not aware that he is only playing with them as a cat with a mouse, and the brethren to whom the Lord has entrusted the spiritual interest of the people. Testimony for the Church, volume 5, page 211. Instead of sounding the alarm to arouse the church, are determined to even silence the voice of the rod, and thus rocking her to a more sound sleep. To Symbolic Code, number 1, page 9 and 10. As I noticed, there is also a program in Facebook and also in YouTube. They are trying to emphasize that very soon, the Blue Sunday law will be implemented in the United States of America. But the Shepherd's Rod made it so plain. The devil, Satan, is only playing them as a cat, playing the mouse. They were saying that the Blue Sunday law is about to be implemented in the United States of America, but they reject the Shepherd's Rod. They were studying the sanctuary doctrine, but they rejected the Shepherd's Rod. How could they be able to arrive into the entire proceedings in the heavenly sanctuary without the Shepherd's Rod? So it is only a waste of time in reality. But sad to say, look at the Shepherd's Rod believers. Instead of being benefited, having the Shepherd's Rod, nobody pay attention to the sanctuary doctrine. Nobody discussing Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. There are people discussing the sanctuary doctrine, but they don't believe the Shepherd's Rod. Here we have the Shepherd's Rod believers, but they don't discuss the sanctuary doctrine, but rather wasting their time contending who is the true headquarters. Prophecy must be fulfilled. Brothers and sisters, the daily and the sanctuary had been trodden underfoot by the exceeding great one, the instrument of Satan. I would like to read tract number 4. On page 25 and page 26. It says, since these ordinances, her feast days, her Sabbaths, etc., were part of a compacted prophecy of the gospel, a presentation in which were bound up the promises of redemption. The Acts of the Apostles, page 14, and since Hosea's symbolization has brought us into the Christian era, the ceasing of the ordinances, therefore, typifies Rome supplanting the truth. Brothers and sisters, the term ordinances cannot be applied to the weekly Sabbath. Thus, the ordinances mentioned here, brothers and sisters, is pointing to the holy feast. Look at the Berean. They were teaching that the holy feast had been nailed to the cross. If the holy feast had been nailed to the cross, I think the most accurate people that need to know that the holy feast had been nailed to the cross, it must be the apostles, because they are the living witness of Christ's first advent. Look at the statement in Acts of the Apostles. Acts of the Apostles. Maybe outside. I would like to read to you. In Acts of the Apostles. If that is the case, brethren, then how could it be that after Jesus Christ ascended to heaven, the apostles still observed the holy feast? And not only the apostles observed the holy feast, they even teach to observe it. More particularly, to Apostle Paul. Of all the 12 apostles, brethren, it is Apostle Paul has more understanding concerning the sanctuary doctrine. Now, I would like to read Acts of the Apostles, page 389. Paul greatly desired, and this occurrence took place in, I think, 54 AD. Brothers and sisters, at that time, Jesus Christ was already in heaven. Now, let us read. Paul greatly desired to reach Jerusalem before the Passover, as he would thus have an opportunity to meet those who would come from all parts of the world to attend the feast. You see, to attend the feast. Now here in 390, Acts of the Apostles. Upon receiving warning of the plot, Paul decided to go around by way of Macedonia. His plan to reach Jerusalem in time for the Passover services. You see, Passover services had to be given up, but he hoped to be there at Pentecost. How could it be, you will say, Passover services, if the Passover or the Holy Feast is already nailed to the cross? What an erroneous doctrine, brothers and sisters. Now it says, at Philippi, Paul tarried hurried to keep the Passover. Apostle Paul keep the Passover. Only Luke remained with him. The other members of the company passing on to Troas to await him there. The Philippians were the most loving and true-hearted of the apostles' converts, and during the 8 days of the feast, he enjoyed peaceful and happy communion with them. Now, I plead all shepherds lad believer, show to the Bible and its prophecy that the Holy Feast had been nailed to the cross. The only thing that had been nailed to the cross is the ceremonial sacrifices, the burnt offerings, which is only a part of the ceremonial law. Only a part. Now let me read to you here in Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection. Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection. And look at, to our beloved brothers and sisters, the Bayesian advocates, they say that they are the one binding the law and the testimony. But in total darkness concerning the ceremonial law. And teaching that the ceremonial law was nailed to the cross. While the only thing that had been nailed to the cross is the, brothers and sisters, the daily sacrifice, the burnt offerings. Now let us read Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, page 99. Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, page 99. In Daniel 8, verse 11 to 13, Daniel 11, verse 31, Daniel 12, verse 11, it will be noticed that the word sacrifice is in every case supplied. And it is wholly supplied. For in its place, in the original, there is no word at all. Even the Shepherd's Rod says that the word sacrifice, being italicized, does not belong to the text. I would like to read 2SR 130. 2SR 130. The Spirit of Prophecy, commenting on the text, says, then I saw in relation to the daily, Daniel 8 verse 12, that the word sacrifice was supplied by man's wisdom and does not belong to the text. Early Writings, page 74. This being true, we must disregard the word sacrifice, but hold to the daily, although the word sacrifice is italicized, showing that it was supplied. A vision was given regarding the text, making it evident that a vital truth is involved in the words daily and sanctuary. And whatever the daily may be, it was taken away by the great horn. It was taken away by the great horn. Now let us go back again to the statement in Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, page 99. In Daniel 8, verse 11 to 13, Daniel 11, verse 31, and Daniel 12, verse 11, it will be noticed that the word sacrifice is in every case supplied. And it is wholly supplied, for in its place in the original, there is no word at all. In the original, the only word that stands in this place is the word tamid, the Hebrew word tamid, that is here translated daily. And in these places, the expression daily does not refer to the daily sacrifice any more than it refers to the whole daily ministry or the continual service of the sanctuary, of which the sacrifice was only a part. You see, the burnt offerings, that is the only thing that had been nailed to the cross, only a part of the ceremonial law, not the entire ceremonial law. My dear brothers and sisters, the daily, there are two things pointing to the daily, pointing to the Sabbath, the weekly Sabbath, and pointing to the continual service in the heavenly sanctuary. While probationary time still lingers. And we already read in the Great Controversy, 518, that the determined effort of the devil is to darken the understanding of God's people. Look at how he successfully trodden underfoot the daily and the sanctuary. What does it mean by trodden underfoot? Taken for granted, became out of value. The devil successfully divert their attention to any other things rather than to focus their attention to Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. The Shepherd's Rod emphasizes in 1 TG 51, page 5 and 6, if the church is not commensurably growing and expanding, then how can she be a living church? And how can she keep up with the signs of the times and with the progress in the sanctuary above? 1 TG number 51, page 5 and 6. How can she keep up with the progress in the sanctuary above? Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary, the center of the plan of redemption, according to the Great Controversy, 488 and 489. That Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary is as essential as was his death upon the cross. But God informed Daniel, brothers and sisters, God informed Daniel that it will be trodden underfoot. The horn be rule over all the earth. When? On the brass period, meaning on the third period of the exceeding great horn. The period by which we are living in, and this is fulfilling right now. Sabbath keepers discussing sanctuary doctrine, but rejected the shepherd's rod. Useless. Brothers and sisters, the devil successfully darkened their understanding, because you cannot understand the sanctuary doctrine without the shepherd's rod. But look at, we have shepherd's rod believers supposed to be, will be benefited of having the shepherd's rod. But look at them, wasting their time contending who is the true headquarters, not knowing that our cases are now being weighed in the balances in the heavenly sanctuary. Now, I would like to read again track number 4. Track number 4, page 25 and page 26. Since these ordinances, her feast days, her Sabbaths, etc., were part of a compacted prophecy of the gospel, a presentation in which were bound up the promises of redemption, the Acts of the Apostles, page 14. And since Hosea's symbolization has brought us into the Christian era, so do not forget, Daniel 8, the fulfillment is in the Christian era. So, the statement, it shall be trodden underfoot also, it must be in the third period, the focal point, the particular object in view. It says, the ceasing of the ordinances, therefore, typifies Rome supplanting the truth. Daniel also was shown that this was to be accomplished through Rome, the exceeding great horn, which cast down to the ground the truth and the place of his sanctuary, Christ's sanctuary. Daniel 8, verse 12 and 11. What does it mean? Put to the ground? Good for nothing. Brothers and sisters, nobody is interested. While in reality, the most important of all the subject ever recorded in the Bible, it must be Christ's mediatorial work in the heavenly sanctuary. Now let's continue reading on the next paragraph. Track number 4 on page 26. Note that the truth and the place, not the sanctuary itself, were cast down. That is, both Christ's truth and his place in the earthly sanctuary were set aside so that the knowledge as to his mediatorial work became obscured. The word obscured meaning darkened. No, it is not the truth alone. Brothers and sisters, that had been trodden underfoot, but as well as the place. But not the truth and the place alone, but the sanctuary itself were cast down. When, in what subject does the plan of redemption is revealed? Through the sanctuary construction and service. Now let us read 2SR, page 187. It says, in the sanctuary construction and service is revealed the plan of salvation. Do you believe that statement? That the plan of salvation is revealed through the sanctuary construction and service. Brothers and sisters, the word service, of course, pointing to in what way we will worship the Lord. I remember the statement on, I think that is in 1SR Packet Edition. Let me read to you the statement in 1SR Packet Edition on page 1 page 86. It says, I would like to read the statement. It is designed to awaken them to a realization of how the Lord is to be worshipped and where saving truth is to be found of the commencement of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. I would like to read again. One is our pocket edition, page 86. It is designed to awaken them to a realization of how the Lord is to be worshipped and where saving truth is to be found of the commencement of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Remember, the last ordained ministry, they were called Levites or priests and Levites. What is the statement given by the shepherd's rod? Let us read 1 SR. Here in 1 SR, page 172, it says, there is to be a system of worship, therefore a need of priests and Levites. So what does it mean that in need of priests and Levites? Because there is to be a system of worship. And of course, brothers and sisters, it is revealed in the sanctuary doctrine. Through the sanctuary construction and service is revealed the plan of salvation. But what happened to the daily and the sanctuary? Trodden underfoot. Do you believe the Bible? The prediction is very positive. The exceeding great horn bears rule over all the earth. The earth mentioned there is not literal. Otherwise, there would be no God's people. The earth mentioned there is the symbolical earth, because that is the place by which God's sanctuary had been placed. Brothers and sisters, that is the English-speaking countries. But what happened to the sanctuary? The sanctuary itself. The statement in tract number 4, page 26, it says, not only the truth, but as well as the place, but the sanctuary itself had been trodden underfoot, and it practiced and prospered. The statement in 2 SR 139, these facts cannot be denied. I would like to emphasize that reading in 2 SR page 139, 140 rather, it says, but as God is perfect in all His works, He cannot allow error in His holy word. Daniel is correct in his interpretation, and the brass kingdom must be ruled over all the earth, for all else may fail, but God's word shall stand forever. God's word will not return unto Him void. Isaiah 55, verse 10 and 11. All others may fail, but God's word will stand forever. Do you believe God's word? That the exceeding great one shall be ruled over all the earth. The entire symbolical earth had been trodden underfoot by the devil. And that's why some might say, there are people in the United States of America, they were discussing sanctuary doctrine, and you can see that in YouTube and also in Facebook. Yes. But look at them, discussing the sanctuary doctrine, but rejecting the shepherd's rod message, the only medium that they could be able to comprehend completely the sanctuary doctrine. That is hypocrisy. Brothers and sisters, you are discussing the subject to understand sanctuary doctrine, but in reality you were rejecting the only medium that you could comprehend the subject. That is hypocrisy. Outstanding blasphemy. But look at these shepherd's rod believers. Every one of them contending who are the true headquarters and who are binding, or the absolute authority binding the shepherd's rod publications. They were repeating the mistakes of the Jewish people who bind the entire Bible in the first advent of Jesus Christ. The scribes and the Pharisees, Sadducees, the Jewish leaders, they were the one binding those writings. But they did understand the books that they had been binding. They were in total ignorance. They rejected the Messiah. Apology, brothers and sisters. Well, I admit, in reality, the writings that the Shepherd's Rod publications in my hands, some of them I obtained it cometh from Mountain Dale, and I'm so thankful to the Mountain Dale. I love them. Some of them I have obtained from Waco. And some of them I've obtained from Bayesian. And I would like to give thanks to all of them. But I need now to repay what I obtained from them. The message contained in the books that they distributed, we are now sharing to them the message recorded in the Shepherd's Rod publications by which they distributed. Although some of them we did not obtain free. It was sold. We buy those reading materials in order to obtain. It was not given free. But still, we're so thankful. Look at the Protestant. The International Bible Society or American Bible Society. They are the one who are binding the Bible. More particularly to the King James Version. It is the Protestant denominations that produce the Bible, distributed throughout the whole world. But they did not understand that the true rest day is the Sabbath. They rest on Sunday, in spite of the fact that they are the one distributing the reading materials, the Bible. Now, I would like to go back again, to our subject, brothers and sisters. The Shepherd's Rod declared clearly here in 2SR. Uh, 2SR on page, let me read to you. (131) on 2SR, page 131, it says, "Therefore, the daily and the sanctuary must hold truth vital to the Christian church." 2SR 131. "Therefore, the daily and the sanctuary must hold truth vital to the Christian church, and the prophet declared that it was to be trodden underfoot." Who trodden underfoot? Of course, Satan, the devil. Because Satan knoweth that if we will be aware and familiar and completely comprehend the subject of the daily and the sanctuary, he was completely defeated. So in order to defeat God's people, he tried to the utmost of his ability to trodden underfoot. And according to the Shepherd's Rod, it was already predicted beforehand, recorded in the book of Daniel, that the daily and the sanctuary will be trodden underfoot. Yes, it was trodden underfoot during the dark ages, but the Shepherd's Rod says it will also be trodden underfoot on the Protestant period, in the last period of the exceeding great horn, because the Bible is very plain. The horn bears rule over all the earth, and that earth is symbolical earth, and there is no other symbolical earth except the United States of America, by which the sanctuary is placed by God, brothers and sisters, and that is, brothers and sisters, the Seventh-day Adventist Church. But, of course, brethren, you will not say that when God raised up the Seventh-day Adventist Church in October 22, 1844, and then organized in 1863. At that moment, brothers and sisters, that sanctuary has been trodden underfoot. What is the statement? The place. What place? Holy place. I would like to read the Bible. Matthew 24, verse 15. "When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand." Now, the question is that, why is it that Jesus Christ is specifically, particularly mentioning the holy place? The sanctuary is not holy place alone. It consists two apartments, holy place and most holy place. But why is it that Jesus Christ is specifically mentioning holy place? Because Jesus Christ is trying to tell you and I that it is Christ's mediatorial work in the holy place that Satan trodden underfoot. Because once you fail Christ's mediatorial work in the holy place, you will lose forever. When thus the daily and the sanctuary had been trodden underfoot, the groundwork, dark ages. The dark ages. But during that period of time, where is the mediatorial work of Jesus Christ? It is in the holy place, not most holy. So the type teaches that while Christ's mediatorial work, brothers and sisters, is still in the holy place, that is the fulfillment by which the exceeding great horn trodden underfoot, brothers and sisters. The focal point in reality is in the judgment that pertains to the living, not in the judgment that pertains to the dead. Why is it that God allowed the devil to be trodden underfoot? The daily and the sanctuary during the dark ages. For the benefit of the 144,000 living saints, so that we could have the groundwork to understand it completely. Brothers and sisters, the Bedean, not even one among them has knowledge that Christ's mediatorial work since 2011 is already in the holy place and it will be finished this year. And they have no knowledge at all. Why? Because it was predicted beforehand that it was practiced and prospered that the devil, through the medium of the exceeding great horn, had been able to trodden underfoot the daily and the sanctuary where Christ's mediatorial work in the holy place. Matthew 24, verse 15. Now, I would like to read to you here in 2SR 139. It's a summary. The horn bears rule over all the earth. In order to fully comprehend what is being taught in this chapter, we again call attention to the chart on page 128. Now let us follow the chart along with the reading. In the foregoing study, it is proven that the exceeding great horn of the goat does not represent imperial Rome only, but also papal Rome, and the present world as well. For the horn first persecuted Christ and his followers under the jurisdiction of the Roman monarchy. The truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary were trodden down by reason of transgression in the period of the broken state of Rome up to 508 AD. What happened to 508 AD? The daily and the sanctuary was no longer trodden underfoot, but rather it was taken away. That is the groundwork. The implementation of the Blue Sunday law is no longer the fulfillment that the daily and the sanctuary had been trodden underfoot, but rather it was taken away. It will be taken away. Why? Because the devil completely failed. At that time, the 144,000 living saints were already sealed and completely enlightened. with the subject, the daily and the sanctuary. Remember, brothers and sisters, what is the description given in the Bible when the Blue Sunday Law will be implemented? The woman is riding on the beast. And that is no longer called the broken state of Rome. That is called by inspiration threefold union. Not broken state. As is stated in 2 SR 113. But at this time we are studying the period which is called the broken state of Rome, illustrated by the 2 feet, the right foot and the left foot. By which the Shepherd's Rod says in 2 SR page 89, it is particularly pointing to the Western civilization, more particularly to the United States of America. Leftists, Democrats, rightists, Republican. They cannot go along together because that is the description. But the time will come that God will put into their hearts that they will be united. And they will give their power unto the beast in order to fulfill the Word of God. Although we will discuss that on our special episode on the beast and its image. So it says here, brethren, I would like to read again. The truth expressed by the daily and the sanctuary were trodden down by reason of transgression in the period of the broken state of Rome up to 508 AD. But the imperial government came to an end in the year 476 AD. Furthermore, the papal power treats God's truth on the ground up to the termination of the prophetic 1,260 years and ended with the imprisonment of the Pope in 1798. But the sanctuary and the daily were held to the ground by the Great Horn up to 1844. What does it mean up to 1844? And it says at that time, he lost control of them. But that is the groundwork, brethren. And the power of the 3 angels' messages raised the truth from the ground and from underfoot and placed it in the church. Brethren, the Bible cannot be mistaken. The devil could be able to trodden underfoot the daily and the sanctuary only while Christ's ministerial work, while Christ's mediatorial work is still in the holy place. But when Jesus Christ will enter to the most holy place on that very day, that is the time that the devil will lose control of them. And the voice of inspiration says, I would like to read this reading. Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, page 104, the time of finishing the mystery of God. The time of finishing the mystery of God. But that imposture is not to last forever. Thank the Lord. Brothers and sisters, the exceeding great horn is pointing to all the leadership in the United States of America. Brothers and sisters, that had been used by the devil to hinder the truth. And to keep God's people in darkness. That is why the Shepherd's Son says, woe to the sinners in Zion. What is Zion? Headquarters. White House Recruiter, page 53. It says here in 2SR page 101, 2SR page 100, on page 101, if God's ideal is to bless the world through the medium of His church on earth, and they to whom the gospel for the world is committed have left the ship and are serving the devil in the person of themselves. How they serve the devil? By hindering the daily and the sanctuary. Can you imagine, brothers and sisters, instead to investigate this doctrine, this coming Day of Atonement, March 27, 2021, October 10, 2022 in Bible calendar, the last and the final Day of Atonement, instead of investigating and discussing, they were serving the devil by rejecting the message. And not only rejecting the message, they are speaking evil against the message. And then, brothers and sisters, hindering that if possible, not even one among their membership will listen to this message. It says, are serving the devil in the person of themselves. Where is the hope of the world? The only hope of the world is the 11th hour church, the 11th hour movement. And it cannot be and will not be in the United States of America. Otherwise, the prediction given by Daniel must be erroneous. That the exceeding great horn be roosed over all the earth, if there is still a divinely called movement in the symbolical earth. It cannot be said. The horns bears rule over all the earth. And it is also illustrated in the red dragon. Because United States of America is antitypical Jewish nation, become the bottomless pit. That the only people of God in the United States of America is individual persons, but not a movement. There is no movement of God in the United States of America. I remember the statement in 12 Symbolic Code. It says in number 2, page 7. 12 Symbolic Code, number 2, page 7. Seeing then that the devil had all the religions of the earth and all the kingdoms of the earth, represented by the 7 heads and 10 crown horns on his head, then how much was not the devil's? It was all his. This being true, then for God's true individual people, the only people of God is individual people. Within the church, the earth had indeed become a bottomless pit, a prison house. 12 Symbolic Code, number 2, page 7. So we have the type and we have the antitype. So brothers and sisters, I would like to read again this reading in Consecrated Way to Christian Perfection, because I do fully believe that God is in control. Gradually, the eyes of the constituent of the living saints, 144,000, will be enlightened as predicted in the Bible. Even the Shepherd's Rod says in 2 TG 24:23, the true people of God, the church therefore will not sleep forever. The true people of God will be benefited with this rousing call. They will be awakened to their poverty, spiritual poverty. Because the only riches in spiritual aspect is the present truth. They discovered that there was no present truth within the United States of America. It says here, But that imposture is not to last forever. Thank the Lord. This great truth of the priesthood ministry and sanctuary of Christianity is not to be hid forever from the eyes of the church and the world. I would like to apply directly in actuality by saying, this great truth of the priesthood ministry and sanctuary of Christianity is not to be hid forever from the eyes of the 144,000 living saints and the great multitude. The mystery of iniquity arose and so hid from the world the mystery of God, that all the world followed it wondering. Revelation 13 verse 3 and 4. But the day comes when the mystery of iniquity shall be exposed, and the mystery of God in its own truth and purity shall shine forth once more, never more to be hid, but to accomplish its great purpose and be completely finished. For it is written that in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as yet declared to his servants, the prophets. Revelation 10 verse 7. And that seventh angel, he will begin to sound on that day of atonement, March 27, 2021. So, brethren, to repeat again, I never forget the subject, the 66 books in the heavenly sanctuary. But I inserted this portion because I do fully believe it is necessary and even more important. And the reason why this knowledge never been revealed to all the leadership within the United States of America, it's so because, brothers and sisters, all of them had been defeated by the devil. As predicted in the Bible, is for prophecy, more particularly with the Shepherd's Rod publications. We will continue this subject, brethren, and apology and forgive me if I say something wrong or which is not appropriate. But God knows, deep down in my heart, my only objective is to share the message that none of us would fail to obtain this everlasting life. That if possible, all Shepherd's Rod believers, all our names will be retained in the Lamb's Book of Life. I love you, brethren. Even to those who continually speak evil against this message and against the messenger, still, I'm continually praying to all my fellow Shepherd's Rod believers. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.